Prospero is a fictional character and the protagonist of William Shakespeare's play The Tempest. The Tempest, Prospero is the rightful Duke of Milan, whose usurping brother, Antonio, had put him to sea on a rotten carcass of a boat to die, 12 years before the play begins. Prospero and Miranda survived and found exile on a small island. He has learned sorcery from books, and uses it while on the island to protect Miranda and control the other characters. Before the play has begun, Prospero frees Ariel from entrapment within a cloven pine, about which Prospero states, "It was mine art, when I arrived and heard thee, that made gape the pine and let thee out." Prospero's sorcery is sufficiently powerful to control Ariel and other spirits, as well as to alter weather and even raise the dead. "Graves at my command have waked their sleepers, oped, and let 'em forth, by my so potent art." Act V, Scene 1. On the island, Prospero becomes master of the monster Caliban and forces Caliban into submission by punishing him with magic if he does not obey, and of Ariel, a spirit who is beholden to Prospero after he is freed from his imprisonment inside the pine tree. At the end of the play, Prospero intends to drown his book and renounce magic. In the view of the audience, this may have been required to make the ending unambiguously happy, as magic smacked too much of diabolical works. He will drown his books for the same reason that Dr. Faust, in an earlier play by Christopher Marlowe, promised in vain to burn his books. Prospero's speech, the final soliloquy and epilogue in The Tempest, is considered to be one of the most memorable speeches in Shakespearean literature. "Now my charms are all o'erthrown, and what strength I have's mine own, which is most faint. Now, 'tis true, I must be here confined by you, or sent to Naples. Let me not, since I have my dukedom got, and pardon up the deceiver, dwell in this bare island by your spell. But release me from my bands, with the help of your good hands, gentle breath of yours my sails must fill, or else my project fails, which was to please. Now I want spirits to enforce, art to enchant, and my ending is despair, unless I be relieved by prayer, which pierces so that it assaults mercy itself and frees all faults. As you from crimes would pardon up me, let your indulgence set me free." In it, Prospero states his loss and his continuing imprisonment if the audience is not pleased. Many feel that since The Tempest was the last play that Shakespeare wrote alone, Prospero's feelings echo Shakespeare's own, or perhaps may even have been his retirement speech. In popular culture, comics in Fables by Bill Willingham, Prospero is a recurring character, one of the 13th Floor Fables. In the comic book series The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen by Alan Moore and Kevin O'Neill, Prospero appears as a founding member of the first such grouping in 1610, alongside his familiars Caliban and Ariel. In The Sandman, the title character has William Shakespeare write The Tempest. Film and television a film Forbidden Planet has similarities to The Tempest. In a television production of The Tempest, Prospero was played by Maurice Evans. Sir Michael Redgrave played Prospero in a BBC Play of the Month production in 1968. Heathcote Williams played Prospero in Derek Jarman's 1979 film version of The Tempest. Sir Michael Hordern played Prospero in a 1980 production for BBC Television. A Stratford Shakespeare Festival production was videotaped and broadcast on television in 1983, starring Len Carrier as Prospero. Paul Mazursky's film, Tempest, features a Prospero-esque character portrayed by John Cassavetes who was in exile of his own cynical discontent, ego and self-betrayal and who abandons America for a utopian kingdom on a secluded Greek isle. In the Swedish animated film The Journey to Melonia, which is loosely inspired by The Tempest, Prospero is the ruler of the island Melonia. In Peter Greenaway's film Prospero's Books, Prospero is played by John Gielgud. In Julie Taymor's 2010 film adaptation of the play, Prospero is played by Helen Mirren and is now named Prospera. The Star Trek: The Next Generation episode Emergence begins with Data playing Prospero. Based on the manga by the same name, the anime series Blast of Tempest includes a main character whose setup is similar to Prospero's, a magician betrayed and abandoned on a deserted island by her followers, The TNT Season 2 two-episode premiere of The Librarians features Prospero as the antagonist of the episode. Games in the Divinity, Dragon Commander video game by Larian Studios, the 5 political counselors are named after Shakespeare characters: Yorick the Undead, Falstaff the Dwarf, Oberon the Elf, Prospero the Lizard, and Trinculo the Imp. Paul Prospero, the protagonist of The Vanishing of Ethan Carter, is named after Prospero. In the tabletop wargame Warhammer 40,000 by Games Workshop, one of the Chaos Space Marine traitor legions. The Thousand Sons' original homeworld was called Prospero. Literature in J.G. Ballard's short story Dream Cargoes, the chemical waste ship marooned on the World War II garbage island is called the Prospero. In John Bellairs's novel The Face in the Frost, Prospero is one of the protagonists. T.S. Eliot's poem The Wasteland references Prospero. In the Horus Heresy series, several books take place on a planet called Prospero. The citizens of the planet are versed in sorcery and psychic powers, earning them the suspicion and ire of the rest of the Imperium of Man. One of the AIs of Christine Love's visual novel, Digital, A Love Story, is called Prospero and was created to research the Reaper's weaknesses. In Aaron Morgenstern's novel The Night Circus, one magician's stage name is Prospero the Enchanter. Frank O'Hara's A Prayer to Prospero references Prospero. In Yuri Alesh's novel Three Fat Men, one of the main characters is Armourer Prospero. Dan Simmons' novels Ilium and Olympos reference Prospero. Elizabeth Willie's novel A Sorcerer and a Gentleman is a retelling of the story from The Tempest. Her books The Well-Favored Man and The Price of Blood and Honor pre- and post-date the story, respectively. In Tad Williams' novel Caliban's Hour, the story of The Tempest is told through the point of view of Caliban, with Prospero portrayed as the villain of the story, being shown as manipulative, prejudiced with colonialistic attitudes and capable of murderous violence. Music Lauriana McKennitt sings a slightly altered version of the epilogue speech on her album The Mask and Mirror. Periodicals The Economist blog on books, arts, and culture is called Prospero. Radio plays Melancholyfla, by NZ playwright Tom McCrary, is about a man Prospero, in his late 60s, who struggles to come to terms with the death of his wife and has mistreated his daughter Miranda. BBC Radio 3 broadcast a production of The Tempest adapted for radio and directed by David Hunter, starring Philip Maddock as Prospero, Nina Wadia as Ariel, Josh Richards as Caliban, Catherine Reese as Miranda, Andrew Cryer as Ferdinand, Rudolph Walker as Gonzalo, James Lawrenson as Alonzo, Christian Rodska as Sebastian, and Ian Meredith as Antonio. David Warner played Prospero in the BBC Radio 3 drama on 3 production of The Tempest, broadcast as part of the Shakespeare Unlocked series on the BBC. The production included Carl Prekop as Ariel, Rose Leslie as Miranda, James Garnon as Caliban, James Lally as Antonio and Peter Hamilton Dyer as Sebastian, and was adapted for radio and directed by Jeremy Mortimer. Sculpture Eric Gill sculpted Prospero and Ariel. Arju Har sculpted Prospero. References. External links.